Welcome to Heart Collaborations, where we explore the heart of wellness, mental and emotional well-being, relationships, personal passions, and thriving parenthood. Hi, I'm Annette.
And I'm Anita. Collectively, we have over 50 years in the educational and mental health arenas. Whether you're looking for information, personal stories, or just a place to feel seen and heard, you're in the right place. Join us as we dive into conversations that inspire, empower, help you grow, and add a little laughter to your life.
Hey, welcome to Heart Collaborations. We're so glad you're joining us today. Today, we're talking about a very important topic, and it's self-compassion. And I know some of you guys out there may even be rolling your eyes right now because in a world of accountability, sometimes self-compassion gets behind. But the crazy thing is, and we're going to talk about this a little bit further down the road, but research shows that, for example, when we're wanting to make change, that self-compassion is one of the most important characteristics of being effective and successful in making that change. So listen up. Let's talk about some self-compassion.
I'm so glad we're doing self-compassion today. And I think it gets a little bit confused with self-care. But before we get started, we want to thank the Meeting Place for having us here, allowing us to do this podcast. It's a great place to come and network. And come and visit. We're in Farmers Branch.
I want to say something about Rob Bliss, the owner and CEO of the Meeting Place. Is he really cares. He has a mission to help other people, entrepreneurs, business owners, to grow their business and be successful. So it not only is a place to come and to collaborate, but there's mentorship here and lots of opportunities. So
just about everybody here has written a book. So if you're thinking about writing a book, this is a place to come. Really. So let's get started, Annette. Let's get to it.
So I guess, a good place to start is maybe to talk about what is self-compassion.
Wow. So self-compassion to me, I'm going to use Neff's definition of self-compassion. That would be, how would you treat a friend is how you would treat yourself. A lot of time we're harsh on ourselves, but we could be nice to a friend.
Right. So that's a good lens to put on is, so self-compassion is showing our self-kindness, to support ourselves. When that self-critic comes out, it's the opposite of that self-critic. And it doesn't mean that you can't evaluate yourself. But in that evaluation, we want to take away that harsh critic, and take care of ourselves, just like you said, just like we would a friend. And I know you mentioned Kristin Neff. And so she's a leading researcher in the area of self-compassion. You definitely want to check out her stuff. She's got some books out there, multiple books out there. One of the things that I found that I absolutely loved and adored is she's got some articles and a website where you can sign up for some newsletters from her, and she will guide you through different self-compassion activities, and I thought they were really good.
I think when you first get started, it's really hard because she talks about this backdraft. It's our own inner critic about the ideas that we have about ourselves, the things that we grew up with, whether we had a nurturing parent or a critical parent or, experiences, right, in life. And so sometimes even doing those exercises could be hard because we're not experiencing, because if we haven't experienced love, then we are experiencing that anger that we've had or that fear. And so being really vulnerable and doing some of these exercises is pretty cool to actually start building that. And that's the cool thing that I like about this is that it doesn't matter where you're at. Anybody can do this.
True. Yeah. Definitely. So Kristin Neff has 3 different components that are at the heart of her research on self-compassion. And I just want to list them briefly, and then we'll begin to kind of dissect those. But the first area is self-compassion versus self-judgment. The second one is common humanity versus isolation. And then mindfulness versus over-identification. And so when we talk about self-kindness versus self-judgment, we barely touched on that just a little bit. But self-kindness is, being gentle and understanding to ourselves and supportive. It shows up a lot in the way that we speak to ourselves. And I think that's maybe a good place to talk, to stop right there.
Yeah. I want to start with really when she talks about this self-compassion, right? We're talking about this love that we have for ourselves. But two, she's really talking about suffering.
Mm-hmm.
She's talking about all the things that we suffer about.
Mm-hmm.
In one of her books, she shares how when she first found out that her son was autistic, about how she had that information. And I love that, her husband was like, no, you need to go ahead and go. She was already signed up for a retreat. And so he said, no, you go ahead and go to that retreat. It was a mindfulness retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I went ahead and went. And he said, you go ahead and go so that you can be strong so that when you get back, you can help me.
That's a beautiful story. Yeah. And a great example of self-kindness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And taking care of oneself.
Yeah.
That harsh critic, that self-judgment. So it's self-kindness versus self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes comes into holding ourselves to this level of perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will show up a lot of times in self-talk, not necessarily in what we say out loud, but sometimes what we say out loud, in name calling.
Oh yeah. One of the
name
things,
calling ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things, one of the studies, that that Harvard had done was that they're seeing a rise in like perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of a disconnect too, right? It's like you're disconnected to self because you got to know who you are, for that self-love. It's getting to know you, getting to accept who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're detached, and I was thinking about this because I'm like, okay, we read The Anxious Generation. It talks about connection.
Mm-hmm.
We read the other book, and it talks about connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, here we are again, talking about connection and talking about self and how that plays into how we deal with ourselves. Instead of being harsh, we can be kind.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're not connected to ourselves, then that could be really hard.
And one way to be connected to ourselves is be connected to others. And, one of the first things we talked about is like a skill that she uses is talk to yourself as you would a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned that earlier. And most of us would never, call a friend names, would never cuss at a friend. But yet, sometimes in our mind, we'll say, stupid, you idiot. I can't believe you would do that.
Yeah.
You bitch. I mean, right? People talk to themselves in critical, really harsh ways.
I mean, sometimes I say I'm a bitch, but I mean in a good way. Like a baddie,
Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Put a twist on it. Yeah.
No, I get that from a friend of mine. She's like, oh, I'm such a bitch. I'm like, yeah, you are. But she means it in a good way.
So we want to begin to notice, to pay attention. And when we catch ourselves moving into that self-critic, that name caller, that accuser, that judge, then we want to catch ourselves and we want to stop, we want to pause, and then we want to move into areas of self-compassion.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite little quotes from her. The one that she starts is, "This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need." Because a lot of times we're trying to either get our way or get something done, and it doesn't happen the way we want it to, and we could either be disappointed Or we could just kind of be aware that, you know what? It just isn't happening today, and that's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of her statements that I got from her is, everyone makes mistakes. It's okay. I'll figure something out. I'm doing my best. And for some of us out there, when we hear ourselves showing ourselves self-compassion, the same compassion that we would show others, we think, man up. You know, we feel like we're cutting ourselves slack. And yeah, we are cutting ourselves slack.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. And it's not only okay, but it's effective. And we'll talk about some of the payoffs as we move through this. The second part of her theory and research is common humanity versus isolation. You know, I have this, I often will have a gingerbread figure, right? We'll draw a gingerbread figure. And on that gingerbread figure, we'll put little pluses and minuses. And the pluses, like we'll talk about, okay, what are some characteristics that you love about yourself, you like about yourself, you feel are strengths? And we'll put little pluses and we'll name what those strengths are. I'm kind, I'm creative, I'm whatever. And then we'll have some minuses too. Because guess what? We're human, right? And so, I'm impatient. Whatever those challenge areas are, right?
Yeah.
And the difference is when that self-critic comes in, when we have one of those minuses, I was mean to someone today and we have a minus, or I failed a test, or whatever it might be. I burned the dinner, or whatever it might be. And we put those minuses on there. If we're not careful, we'll take that crayon and we'll color that whole gingerbread man black.
Yep.
Right? One or two challenges and we'll let it color our whole being black. Yeah. And that's shame. So understanding that we are part of this common humanity, and that we are going to make mistakes. We're going to have flaws. We're going to have challenge areas. And that's what it means to be human, and that we're going to experience suffering.
Right. But, part of that is also being aware that we are human, that we are suffering, and we're not perfect.
And it's that common humanity that binds us together, right?
Yeah.
And if we can understand that, because it's common humanity versus isolation, right? If we can understand that we're part of this experience of people that are going to make mistakes, right?
Yeah, the awareness.
But that it's okay. Instead of isolating ourselves. And, that's one of the things that shame does, is we keep referring back to that shame, is shame causes us to isolate us because we don't feel worthy. And yet the crazy thing about it is just the very thing about being human is that we're going to make mistakes and have areas to improve in.
Yeah. Here's another little thing about connection with community, right? Just like Dr. Murthy, his was all about community. And here we are again, all about community.
Yeah.
So it must really be important. Like, it's everywhere.
Right.
Community, right? If anything. And the meeting place is a great place for
community,
right?
I want to read this right here, this key insight. When we struggle, we often feel we're alone. But the truth is, to be human is to be imperfect. This mindset builds connection and reduces shame. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, to be human.
So then that third component is mindfulness over identification. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. Mindfulness.
I love mindfulness. I think we all need to practice it. There's so many good things that come out of mindfulness. It's the just the awareness, balancing everything, taking that time out, whether it's mindfulness could even be reading your Bible, reading the scripture. It could be sit down, it could be meditating, with if you're Buddhist, it could be anything. It's the taking the time out to just sit. Just being mindful. So,
for our Bible loving friends, Paul talks about how the very thing that I want to do, I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is pointing back to that humanness. And then in that, he's showing he's mindful. He was mindful of where he was, missing the mark in his opinion, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we hold space to be mindful and to be self-compassionate, acknowledging our suffering.
Yes.
But not over-identifying with our suffering. And yeah, how does that work? How do we not, what does it mean to over-identify?
I think it goes back to the quote that I just read about, this is a moment of suffering, acknowledging that one moment that we are suffering and knowing that it is a part of life, knowing that we're going to be okay, and knowing that, you know what, don't you feel better when you got people in your corner, when you know what, someone's in my corner, I'm going to be okay. If I don't know it, somebody else will. Let me go ask them.
Yeah. This past Friday, I had a little experience where I was feeling some feelings, right? I was feeling sad. I was feeling these different, feelings, and I could have either sat in that alone, right, or I could have reached out. And I chose to reach out, and it was so nice to be able to share my thoughts and feelings on that, and to be mindful of those things, right? And to share those, and to not sit in isolation, but to get support.
Aren't you glad we were reading this?
Yeah, for sure. It always helps, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can think of, we refer often to the waves, right? And riding the waves of life, and our emotions are like waves. And we can, if we're mindful of those waves, it doesn't stop the waves. It doesn't stop the pain. It doesn't stop the suffering.
But it makes them rideable.
But yeah. Instead of letting them pull us under, right?
Yeah, yeah. One other little thing that I really like that Dr. Neff says is, remember that if you really want to motivate yourself, love is more powerful than fear. Think about it. Love is more powerful than fear. So with fear, we react. But with love, we are more intentional.
Some of the, I guess, myths or misconceptions, about self-compassion is that self-compassion is weak, that it makes you complacent, that it's just self-pity or indulgence. And there's research out there that says something different about that. And we mentioned that Harvard Medical School and neuroscience findings shows that self-compassion activates care circuits and in the brain versus the threat system. Let's talk a little bit, remind people what that threat system is.
Well, I think it's going back to that amygdala, surfacing whether or not there's fear or not, right? And so with that, it's kind of like, if you have the same situation, but you're acting out of fear, your body is feeling all the things that it fears with fear. Maybe a heart rate, maybe you're sweating, But if you attack it more like out of love, then you're not having that body react. You're not reacting like it's something that it's bad. It's more of a love, acting out of love.
Yeah, so that threat system is that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn that our body goes in when it perceives either real or perceived fear, like you're saying. And some of the research that I saw was that, for example, people who journaled and showed self-compassion and journaled, that they were able to see the body, the changes in the body as far as heart rate and, decrease those kinds of.
Yeah, the stress level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
pretty
lower
cool.
rates of anxiety, depression, perfectionism, and shame we're all linked to people who practice self-compassion. That's huge. One of the biggest struggles that we're having as a society today is anxiety. And so, there's research that shows that anxiety can help lower that rate.
Again, because it's fear. I'm going to read something. It says, it's by Dr. Neff. It becomes understood that happiness is not dependent on circumstances being exactly as we want them to be, or on ourselves being exactly as we'd like to be. Rather, happiness stems from loving ourselves and our lives exactly as they are, knowing that joy and pain, strength and weakness, glory and failure are all essential to the full human experience. I really like that because when I work with some, let's say kids or adults, it's always what's on the outside. It's always about what I have or don't have. It's about what I can't control. It's all these things, but really we have to look on the inside because we have it already. We just have to know how to nurture it, right?
Right.
I mean, a seed is not going to grow if you don't water it. This is the same thing with compassion. We've got to start watering some of that self-compassion.
And you know how we know we have it? Because we show it to others. So if we can show compassion to others, if we can be a good listener and be mindful of them, right? If we can encourage them, if we can help them self-soothe, those kinds of things, we know that we have the capacity to do it. And so it's just learning to, one, believe that we are worthy of that. And even before you believe you're worthy, just go ahead and start practicing it. And that will bring about that feeling of worthiness eventually.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, even just admitting that, you know what? I'm having a really hard day today.
Yeah.
Admitting that suffering and knowing, I think maybe using the word suffering, we're like, I'm really not suffering. Like, I'm not starving. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you think about it, it's kind of like the mindset of, hey, this isn't going well for me. I am suffering today.
Right.
It's okay that I'm suffering. Because I know for me, when I think about suffering, I'm thinking about like people in third world countries or something,
Right.
But actually, there are people that are suffering here. I mean, I suffer every day making these choices, and it's part of the human experience, but I don't think we really think about it that way. Well, as far as I know I didn't. It's more of like, just telling yourself, oh, I'm suffering today and that's okay.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about a couple of the activities. So we'll go ahead and talk about.
Can I say something real quick? Before I forget. So when I was saying that about the suffering, I was thinking about like the study that they showed that even people that are ill, that it shows that they're more able to deal with illness. They're happier when they, are aware that they are suffering and it's part of the human experience and that it's okay.
Yeah. Able to kind of come to some terms with that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a couple of the practices that Kristin Neff, advocates for and explains and shares. So the first one is going back to that, take a break. And that is talking about, speaking to yourself like you would a friend. And I'd like for us to hash that out just a teeny little bit more as far as how do we respond when our friends share something that they're upset about. Maybe they feel like they messed up, that sort of thing.
Well, I think being a good listener, knowing when to give advice, maybe no advice, sometimes if they come and they ask for advice, it's different.
Right,
but I feel like if we're showing compassion, we're going to be sitting on the log with them. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
That reminds me of Frog and Toad. That's one of my favorite, Frog and Toad.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, we oftentimes will soften our tone, right? will oftentimes and possibly physically, move closer to them in proximity, right? We may even, if it's appropriate and we have that kind of relationship, we may put a hand on a shoulder, or, you know what I'm saying? We may hold their hand.
We may take a casserole.
Yeah. We may do some type of physical comfort. Or, yes, definitely. So we want to think about that in terms of ourselves as well.
Yeah.
And then a second one is going back to that, just saying, identifying, being mindful, this is a moment of suffering, and reminding ourselves that we're part of that humanity. So the second part of that is suffering is a part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, as far as resources, the self-compassion step-by-step by Dr. Neff is really good, but you really want to get that on an Audible instead of a book, because she has meditations in there that are pretty darn awesome. And it's kind of hard to meditate and read. So I'd say get on Audible if you can, or record yourself reading the book,
So if you find yourself in a hard place, you might try this journaling prompt. You could have a little journal book, and when you find yourself in a tough spot where your self-critic is coming out, just have that prompt. And that prompt could be on every page. What would I say to a friend in this situation? Right?
That's pretty easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Yeah.
But hard
it's
to do.
doable, right?
Yeah,
it's doable.
It's doable. But sometimes we don't even think about it because we're so used to being so harsh on ourselves, you know?
Yeah. And then we can reframe mistakes. So kind of flip the script as a learning rather than an identity.
I mean, too, it's she talks a lot about, like, in her meditation, breathing. She does a lot of things with breathing, making sure that you're following your breath. She uses that in her meditation a lot, along with just saying positive things, being grateful. It's kind of hard sometimes to toot our own horn, but one of the things that she talks about is that it's okay to do that.
Right.
It's okay to say, hey, I'm really good at math. I may not be good in English, but I'm really good at math.
Right. One source I want to just mention today, and I hope I mentioned this periodically throughout our podcast seasons, but the meditation, you can get it on Audible. You can buy it by Holly Whitaker, and it's called 30 Days to a New Relationship with Alcohol. In that particular meditation guide, it's not just about alcohol. It's about any change that you want to make. And she does such a great job of really emphasizing and teaching compassion. And I want to go back to that the research shows that the people who practice compassion, that they are more quickly and more effectively able to make change than the person that's the self-critic.
And take responsibility.
Yeah, right.
I'm like,
you have to take responsibility to be able to make change, right?
Yeah.
So we want to encourage you. Hopefully you've gained some insight through this episode today, but we want to encourage you and want to challenge you actually, as you go through this next week, to each day identify, maybe write it down, track it, that you're doing at least one act of self-kindness per day.
Yeah. And the other book is called Stop Beating Yourself Up and Leave Insecurity Behind, Self-Compassion by Dr. Neff. It's a really good book, too. So
we're glad you were here with us. And as always, own your wellness.
Elevate your life.
The content presented in this episode or any others should not be considered therapy and is not prescriptive. If you have questions or concerns about mental health, contact your primary care physician or local mental health provider. The opinions expressed are solely ours and are not representative of our employers or coworkers.